Ronaldo. Oh, it's a stunner.
A World Cup medal won without playing a minute, playing a final hour after a seizure, and a man who scored 2 goals in the final 3 years after doctors said he would never run again. Ronaldo's World Cup journey is one for the history books. But here's what makes the story strange. Watching all 4 of them back to back, you notice the same pattern repeating. So who exactly is that? And why does Ronaldo's World Cup career read like the universe was getting even with him for something? Let's start with a fact that sounds like a typo. Ronaldo won the 1994 World Cup. He played 0 minutes. He was 17 years old. His full name was Ronaldo Luis Nazario de Lima. He came from Bento Ribeiro, a Rio suburb where the streets were too rough for shoes and the futsal courts were the only thing kids could afford to be good at. By 16, he was tearing the Brazilian league apart at Cruzeiro. By 17, he had 12 goals in 14 games and a transfer to PSV Eindhoven already lined up. Carlos Alberto Pereira, the Brazil manager, took one look at this kid and did what any sensible man would do. He brought him to America and then he refused to play him. The 1994 World Cup did not need a teenager. It had Romario, who was operating on a level that bordered on the supernatural. It had Bebeto, the man who would invent the rock the baby celebration. It had Dunga in midfield, sneering at the universe. This was a team built on suspicion, not romance. Pereira's job was to end a 24-year run without a World Cup, not nurture a prodigy. So Ronaldo sat, game after game. He sat through the group stage opener against Russia. He sat through Romario's masterclass against the Netherlands in the quarter-final. He sat through the brutal midday fixture in Dallas, where temperatures hit 105 degrees and grown men hallucinated on the pitch. Romario, watching the kid in training, kept telling reporters this teenager was going to be the best player in the world within 5 years. Romario was not wrong about much in 1994. He was right about this too. But the prediction did not help Ronaldo, who at 17 was still being asked to fetch water during training sessions and address senior players with the formality of a junior officer in the military. And on the 17th of July, 1994, at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, he sat through a final that did not contain a single goal across 120 minutes. Italy versus Brazil. The first World Cup decided by penalties. Roberto Baggio, ponytail flowing, walked up to take the kick that could equalize. He sent it into the California sky, and Brazil won. The bench erupted. Ronaldo got up. He hugged people. He held the trophy. He had a winner's medal around his neck before he had a single appearance to his name. Here is the part nobody mentions. He hated it. He had not earned a thing. He knew it. The cameras caught him during the celebrations, and there is a strange flatness behind the smile. He was a tourist at his own coronation, a 17-year-old kid being handed something that belonged to other men. In interviews years later, he was clear. The 1994 World Cup was not his World Cup. The 1994 World Cup was the World Cup he watched. The trophy in the cabinet was a debt, and the universe, it turns out, takes its debt seriously. Within a year, he was a starter for PSV. Within 2, he was the most expensive transfer in football history, moving to Barcelona. Within 3, he had won the Ballon d'Or at 21 years old. By the start of 1998, he was him. There was no debate about who the best footballer on the planet was. There was only Ronaldo. And then, the people he had to convince. He had convinced everyone, except himself. France was supposed to fix that. France was supposed to be his coronation. Careful what you wish for. By the summer of 1998, Ronaldo was something the sport had not quite seen before. Everything he does becomes trending worldwide. He was 6 foot, he was 180 pounds of muscle that moved at sprinter's pace. He had the close control of a futsal player and the finishing of an assassin. He had just scored 34 goals in his first season at Inter Milan, joining them from Barcelona for a world record fee, having broken the world record fee a year earlier when leaving PSV. He was 21 years old. People called him the Phenomenon. It was not a nickname, it was a diagnosis. There is footage from that era of him receiving the ball at the halfway line, looking up, and the entire opposition back four taking 3 involuntary steps backwards before he has even touched it again. He was scoring goals where he picked the ball up in his own half, ran past 4 players, dummied the goalkeeper, and rolled it in like he was annoyed at having to actually finish. There are players in football history who were faster. There are players who were stronger. There are players who were more skillful. There has never been anybody who combined all 3 at that level, at that age, before or since. Brazil arrived in France as defending champions and overwhelming favourites. Nike had paid them a sum so large, the Brazilian government would eventually open a congressional inquiry into it. The team was decked out in custom everything. Their commercials played in airports. Ronaldo's face was on billboards from Paris to Sao Paulo. And he delivered. 4 goals and 3 assists through the tournament. 2 against Chile in the round of 16. The winning goal in the semi against the Netherlands. He was, by every measure, the best player at the World Cup. The Golden Ball was a formality. And then came July 12th, the final, Brazil versus France at the Stade de France. What happened that morning is still, 28 years later, the most contested mystery in football history. Roughly 6 hours before kickoff, in a hotel room in Le Chesnay, Ronaldo had a seizure. A full-body convulsion. His roommate Roberto Carlos thought he was dying. Other players were called. There was foam. There was screaming. There was a kid biting his tongue on a hotel mattress while the world's biggest match waited outside. He was rushed to a clinic. The official Brazilian team sheet went out without his name. Edmundo was listed at centre forward. Then, with 45 minutes to kick off, the team sheet was reissued. Ronaldo was back in. Edmundo was out. Nobody has ever fully explained what happened in those 45 minutes. Nike was accused of forcing him to play. Doctors were accused of clearing a sick man. Coach Mario Zagallo was accused of caving. Ronaldo himself, when asked decades later, said he simply asked to play, and they let him. Roberto Carlos said the kid looked like a ghost in the tunnel. Footage shows him walking out for the anthems with eyes that aren't quite tracking the stadium. What happened on the pitch was a public execution. Zinedine Zidane scored 2 headers from corners. The kind of goals you score when nobody is bothering to mark you because the entire stadium has noticed something is wrong with the other team. Ronaldo drifted through the match like a man in a dream he could not wake from. He had one moment, one tackle attempted on the French goalkeeper Fabien Barthez, and Barthez nearly knocked him out cold with a collision that should have been a red card and instead got nothing. France won 3-0. They danced on the Champs-Élysées until sunrise. Hundreds of thousands of people, in a country that did not yet know what to do with itself, celebrating the most unlikely World Cup victory in modern history. In Brazil, the conspiracy theories began before the final whistle. They have not stopped since. A congressional inquiry was eventually launched. It produced 200 pages of testimony and no conclusions. The official ruling was that Ronaldo had suffered a convulsion of unknown origin. The unofficial ruling, the one whispered in every barbershop in Rio, was that something had been done to him by Nike, by the team, by God, by somebody. The truth is probably mundane and devastating. The 21-year-old best player in the world, carrying the expectations of 170 million people, with a body marketed as superhuman, had broken under the weight. His brain had stopped, briefly, on the morning of the biggest day of his life, and then he had walked out and played anyway, because nobody told him not to. He won the Golden Ball. The voters had already filled out their ballots before the final. It was awarded to a man who had just played the worst game of his career, in the most important match of his life. after possibly the worst morning any athlete has ever had. He held the trophy at the press conference and tried to smile. The pictures are not pleasant. And here, you would think, is where the story bottoms out. A 21-year-old genius, traumatized, defeated, robbed of his coronation by something nobody can explain. That would already be enough material for a documentary. It was not enough for the universe. The universe was just warming up. The 21st of November, 1999, Inter Milan versus Lecce. 48 minutes into the match, Ronaldo plants his right foot to change direction. The kneecap goes, just goes. The tendon shears. He drops to the grass like a puppet whose strings have been cut. He is 23 years old. Surgery, rehab. 5 months later, the 12th of April, 2000, the Italian Cup final against Lazio. He returns. He is on the pitch for 6 minutes. He plants his right foot to change direction. The same tendon, the same knee. This time, the entire patella tendon explodes. The footage of his face in that moment should be illegal to show without warnings. He is on the ground, holding his knee, and his mouth is open in a silent scream that does not stop. Trainers run to him. He is waving them off. He is sobbing. A 23-year-old multi-millionaire global superstar, on his back in Rome, screaming into the night because his body has betrayed him for the second time in 5 months. The Italian press wrote his obituary. American medical journals wrote papers using his knee as a case study in catastrophic patella tendon failure. The Brazilian tabloids ran headlines like, "Phenomenon no more." His weight ballooned, he couldn't run, he couldn't train, he could barely walk upstairs without pain. For 2 years, he was a ghost. He played 7 competitive matches in 2 seasons. And here, in this dead zone of his career, comes the strangest part of the story. He kept saying he would come back for the 2002 World Cup, out loud, to journalists, to anyone who would listen. The phenomenon, who could no longer phenomenon, kept promising he would phenomenon at the biggest tournament on Earth, on the other side of the planet, in 18 months. Nobody believed him. He believed him. He worked with a psychotherapist named Nilton Petrone and a Brazilian physio named Mario Marquez. He shaved 20 pounds off his frame. He relearned how to run. He relearned how to plant his foot. He spent a year being a man trying to become a footballer again. Coach Luis Felipe Scolari, picking the squad for Korea and Japan in 2002, took a gamble. He brought Ronaldo. Most of the Brazilian media said he was insane. The phenomenon was finished. Take Romario. Take anyone. Don't take a 25-year-old man held together by sutures and prayers. Scolari took him anyway. The 3rd of June, 2002. Brazil versus Turkey. First group game. Ronaldo scores. Just like that. Right foot, on the run, into the corner. The cameras catch him sprinting to celebrate. And he is, for the first time in 3 years, moving like himself again. He is grinning like a man who had been told he would never walk and has just won a sprint. Then he scored against China. Then Costa Rica. Then Belgium in the round of 16. Then Turkey again in the semi. Goal after goal, with a haircut so spectacularly ill-advised it was eventually credited with reducing Brazilian birth rates because nobody wanted to look at him during the relevant moments. And then the final, the 30th of June, 2002, International Stadium, Yokohama, 70,000 fans, Brazil versus Germany. Oliver Kahn in the German goal, having one of the great individual tournaments by a goalkeeper in living memory. Kahn had carried Germany through the entire tournament almost single-handedly, conceding once in 6 matches before the final. He was about to win the Golden Ball as the best player of the World Cup, the only goalkeeper in the history of the award to do so. 67th minute. Kahn parries a Rivaldo shot. The ball spills loose. Ronaldo is exactly where Ronaldo is always exactly. He pokes it in, 1-0. The man who had just won the tournament for Germany single-handedly had handed the trophy to Brazil with one slippery glove. 79th minute. Kleberson on the right. Cross. and a step over from Rivaldo gave Ronaldo space to shoot on the edge of the 6-yard box. Side foots it into the corner, with the kind of casual placement you use when you cannot believe the universe is letting you do this. 2-0. Brazil are champions of the world. 8 goals in 7 matches. Golden Boot. World Cup winner. The pictures of him kissing the trophy at the Yokohama Stadium are some of the most absurd in sports history. 3 years earlier, his career had been declared over by doctors who had X-rays. Now he was the leading scorer in the most important football tournament on earth, and he had won a final that the goalkeeper had been single-handedly winning for Germany. It's like you were watching the greatest movie ever. It was also, statistically speaking, the moment Ronaldo paid back every debt he had ever owed the sport. The 1994 medal he had not earned, the 1998 final he should not have played, the 2000 night in Rome when he had screamed into the floodlights. All of it. Settled. He should have stopped there. The story ended at Yokohama. It would have been perfect. He did not stop there. 4 years later, Germany 2006, and Ronaldo arrived weighing roughly the same as a Volkswagen. The Brazilian press, never gentle, called him obese. Photographers shot him from low angles to make his stomach look worse. There were entire columns dedicated to his weight. There were memes before memes existed. The Brazilian satirical magazine Caceta and Planeta ran a cover of him photoshopped onto a sumo wrestler's body. He was 29 years old and being mocked on the front pages of the country he was supposed to represent. He was 29. He had not been the best player in Brazil's setup for 2 years. The new generation had arrived. Ronaldinho was the reigning Ballon d'Or winner. Kaká was the future. Adriano was the present. Ronaldo was, by every external measure, a passenger on a stacked team that did not really need him. Coach Carlos Alberto Pereira, the same Pereira who had refused to play him in 1994, made him the starting centre-forward anyway. Brazil's so-called magic quartet of attacking talent went into the tournament with Ronaldo as the spear tip. It was supposed to be a celebration. It became a slow-motion accident. The opening match against Croatia, Ronaldo looked heavy. He looked slow. He did not score. The press called for him to be dropped. Pereira refused. The Australia match, Ronaldo did not score again. The Japan match, Ronaldo scored twice, 13 and 14. The round of 16 against Ghana, Ronaldo scored again, 15 World Cup goals, broke the record of Gerd Müller for all-time top scorer. Brazil through to the quarter-finals. Ronaldo's name on a list that nobody had ever expected to be at the top of. Then the quarter-final, Frankfurt, the 1st of July, 2006. France. Zinedine Zidane, 34 years old, in his final tournament. The same opponent, the same age difference. The same match from 1998, 8 years later, with all the variables reversed. Zidane was magnificent. He floated through the Brazilian midfield like he was on a different surface than everybody else. In the 57th minute, he curled a free kick to the back post and Thierry Henry volleyed it into the net. 1-0 to France. That is how it ended. Ronaldo, on the pitch, barely touched the ball. He was tracked by Lilian Thuram and Willy Sagnol, 2 veterans who knew exactly how heavy he was and exactly how to keep him there. The cameras kept finding him standing in space the team could not get the ball into. Brazil were out. And that was it, the last shot of his World Cup career. He walked off the pitch in Frankfurt with 16 goals in 19 World Cup matches, more than any human being who has ever played the sport at that point in history. And the cameras caught him looking at the ground like a man who had failed. He had not failed. He had finished. In 2006, with 3 goals in 5 games, at a tournament he should have been physically incapable of playing in. He had broken Müller's record while being called fat in every newspaper on 3 continents. He had played in 4 World Cups across 12 years, won 2 of them, lost a final he should never have started, and finished as the all-time top scorer. Miroslav Klose would eventually break his record. In 2014, in a Germany shirt, on home soil, in a 7-1 demolition of Brazil. Of course it would be Germany. Here is what I learned watching all 4 of them back to back. Ronaldo's World Cup story is not a highlight reel. It is a ledger. 1,994 was a debt incurred. 1,998 was a debt collected by the universe in the most brutal possible way. 2002 was the impossible repayment, against every medical opinion on earth. With the Brazilian press still half convinced he would never walk again the morning he scored twice in the final. And 2006 was the receipt, the tired, overweight, mocked receipt that nobody asked for, but somehow contained the most important number in the history of the tournament: 15 goals. A record built on the back of a body that doctors had given up on in 2000 and the press had given up on in 2006. The phenomenon was the most physically gifted footballer of his generation, and he played 4 World Cups, and 3 of them tried to destroy him. He kept showing up, he kept finishing, he kept scoring. He sat on a bench in 1994 as a tourist and walked off a pitch in 2006 as the all-time leading scorer of the most-watched sporting event on the planet. He won the tournament without playing. He lost the tournament without being conscious. He won the tournament. His body was not supposed to survive. And he broke the record the world had stopped expecting him to break. That is not a career arc, that is a Greek play. Somebody somewhere was writing this down.
Everything on his own. It was like goal scoring was natural to him. But Ronaldo wasn't about the trickery. Ronaldo was more like 1-on-1, 2v1, 3v1. It didn't matter. He was so quick, agile, with the ball close to his feet.
Ronaldo, he has everything. He has everything: skills, scores, dribbling, everything. He's Ronaldo. So I would love to play with Ronaldo, but he retired. But he's Ronaldo. Nothing much to say about or to talk about, but I love him as a player. I would love to meet him as a person.
On every level.
R9 is the original. If R9 was in this era now, 50 goals, minimum a season in the Premier League.
No question.
Minimum. And his little haircut and, he was the man.
Fast, intelligent, he could absolutely everything.
This is unbelievable. This is not real.
R9 is the original.
He was football because everybody wanted to be him.
He was Messi and Cristiano together.
R9 is the best player of all time.
He was Messi and Cristiano
Together. Yeah.
And then when he left from Inter, I say, you are my friend, eh? If we played against, remember, for me, R9 is the best. The best,
No injuries, because then injuries were coming. And that year in Barcelona was crazy. He scored goals. Compostela, Valencia, getting the ball in midfield, attacking people, dribbling people. Amazing. Crazy. Without training. Without training.
What do you mean?
Lazy.
No way.
Lazy. Training, enjoy, but not training like a method, like discipline. Just enjoying. Just the Brazilian boy coming from the beach or coming from his local, just to play football. Amazing. Such a beautiful thing to see. Amazing.
La corsa di Giorgio, il filtrante, Ronny, salta Paganini, Ronny!